hmm Greetings, greetings. Hotep Aguaba Blessa. And welcome back to the recovery zone and the recovery room of racism non-anonymous. With me, Sis Abena Africa, the recovering African who is still very much culturally enslaved here in America. And I am a representative of voices in the margins. True to the cause of African liberation via unification and utilizing the tool of healthy and effective communications. I'll say again, I am a traumatized traumatologist, trauma queen, and queen of trauma. And that is understanding trauma and traumatic stress, what it is and how it has and continues. It continues to work not only in the lives of African descendants, yet it is the cultural, the cultural spread. It's like the cultural spread, the blanket that has been spread across this planet in the minds of men, women, and now children have learned how to do what the Europeans did to us: enslave, control, manipulate, using this tool called the gaslight. I wonder where they got that from. They found that tool that they call gaslighting. And, it certainly has been spread, and we're all enslaved to this particular way of thinking and behaving, not only about ourselves, yet the world we're in, right? And so I just wanted to come on quick and talk a little bit more about the gaslight effect, how it silenced, how silence is forced on us and our families first from the broader society. What else? I will say I come standing on and bringing with me that revolutionary 12-step self-help program that has been uniquely designed with you and me, the African in mind, designed to support our healing and recovering from the shit, the stress of the human intentional type, traumatic stress, particularly. There's several types of stressors, right? Your body stress when you're about to orgasm. That's a different type of stress. And it's intentional. That's a human intentional. And that might be some shit. No, it's not shit. It's the sugar honey iced tea, that SHIT, that comes with that type. We're talking about traumatic stress of the human intentional type. That's the type that leaves these very deep emotional wounds within our minds, our heart, mind, and spirit. This shit, the behaviors is how it shows up in our lives. Is how that shows up. It's in our behaviors. And what are our behaviors based on? It's based on what we say and what we do. This behavior, right? And so, right, this thing called gaslighting, it became crystal clear for me just a couple of weeks ago. And I have known it. Again, I talked about this before. We never talked about gaslighting. It wasn't a term that was relevant and or voiced, at least not in my community during the 1960s and 70s, right? Again, the term gaslight, I believe, was first introduced to American culture in 1944 with that movie called Gaslight. The Gaslight Effect, was it called, or was it called Gaslighting? The movie. I watched it a couple of weeks ago, and it's like so clear. So just a few points I wanted to say about gaslighting. I just want to talk some more about, as I am continuing to work to bring together more information, fuller information in a webinar series. And I'll be starting some webinar series in order to talk about and teach the things that I have come to know since I've been on the planet, since that's my purpose on the planet as a seer. Yeah, I see shit. And for those of us who are highly spiritual and highly sensitive spirits, we tend to see shit, and we tend to say it, what we see. We talk about what we see. And that's what the gaslighting, that's what American culture wants to control, the truth. It's a seer, we see the truth. This is like right here in your face. Yet we're not allowed to speak the truth. So in order for them to get control and contain the voice, it was our voice first. When we were stolen, for those of us who recognized that our ancestors were taken from another place and brought here across waters and seas and shit. Many of our ancestors are here because of that. Yet, and even for those whose ancestors originated here on this place called America, many folks of African descent and origin, trace their ancestry and their roots here in America. So whether we were transported here and or enslaved here, the first process that happened was the taking away of our voice. For those of us who did not know any other language, and we knew none of the language of the European when they came and invaded, America, the land, and then, spread out across the seas and shit to go and steal people and bring them here to work for them, right? The first thing that was taken away from us was our voice and our ability to communicate with each other and or with them, because during enslavement, they would traditionally separate individuals who came from the same tribes and or the same areas on the continent of Africa. They would separate them so that they would be placed in a place, Ugandan with Nigerians. They're from different tribes and they had different languages, right? So they could not communicate. And that's the first thing, is to steal the voice. And that practice, it seems, has just been disseminated across time and space, across the planet, in terms of how people are placed in a position to have to stop and think about how to hurt another mofo, right? And how to control them. And by the 60s, mind control was very active practice on the societal level. And they were teaching us, it's just so interesting as I'm in this business arena. The most dynamic thing that's interesting is how we are now so comfortably positioned to do things like branding yourself, selling yourself, branding and then selling yourself, because that's what business is. And as they say, it's just business, nothing personal. However, you brand yourself and then you put yourself on the marketplace, and then they get to take a piece. Oh my goodness. I'm dealing with some stuff now with the marketplace in terms of hiring with this Upwork. And even, I forget the other one, I contracted some folks and trying to get some help with. However, we get to brand ourselves and put ourselves on the internet market space, and then they get to take a piece. They get a piece of it. If I hired this person I interviewed, I hired them to do some work. I pay them a certain amount of hour. However, because Upwork, I have to pay Upwork a fee. Every time I pay this person, I have to pay Upwork. So who are you and why do I need to pay you? However, that's how the system is set up, so that they get to capitalize off of our behinds no matter what we do. And we do all the work to put ourselves out there on the market. We do the mental and emotional work to get out there, and then they get to take a piece off of that. It's this culture control the levels of control that's exercised in the lives of in our lives. This is all about power and control. The world stage is all about addiction, the disease of addiction. The upper class is addicted to power and control. The rest of us are all codependent in our own various, engaging in our own various addictive behaviors. And gaslighting seems to be one that seems to organize people. I mean, all it seems that many of the systems that we live in and work under are all organized systems to do the same thing. And that's to suppress the voice of truth, righteousness, and justice, morality. Any of those arenas, any of those arenas, anyone who speaks on those, who behaves in that fashion, and or if you behave in a very moralistic sort of way, have a sense of ethic about yourself and righteousness and justice and doing the next right damn thing by somebody. If you have that mindset, then there seems to have been a trigger planted in people's minds that when they hear that and when they see that they are to attack. They attack and see with what they can get. The victor gets the spoils and some shit. So if they can attack you and subdue you, control you, then they get to take what you have. They get to take the glory that you had, whatever you had. They get to own it. And it's about control, and they get to stop you from doing the next right thing, because it will set you up. If you've been attacked several times, you become very defensive, and you'll do things like stay the fuck away, i.e. isolate from people, or you become more defensive and aggressive. Keep people away. You say things that is going to push somebody away, because that is your way you develop to protect yourself. Yeah, so it really came to me a couple of weeks ago, like I said before, since my oldest sister has passed and made her transition, and she was the primary gaslighter in our generation and in my family, and I was the target. And she was successful in organizing the whole family, not just the five of us, my mom's children, yet the extended family as well, my cousins and all of us in our generation and group. And then, of course, it passed down to her children's generation. So nieces and nephews and all have all carry the same belief system, if you will, about me. And it took me 35 years to recognize what the hell had been happening. Now it happens on our professional levels. As a Black professional, it was like, that's what the hell it was. Like, they're very good at suppressing your truth, marginalizing it, encouraging you to think a different way. People will say, well, don't you think blah blah blah. No, I just said what it was I was thinking. Well, you should do X, Y, and Z. And those, it's like, it's just some very small, minor keywords. Because gaslighting is a communication tactic to exercise control, to inflict abuse, harm, mental and emotional. Because when you walk away, if and when you walk away from a situation, whether it's at home, whether it's with friends in the community, a social situation, whether it's in the office and in professional situations, because office, they are organized against, subduing, submerging, and marginalizing the truth. Truth hurts, so people want to keep it submerged. And it happens on every level of lived experiences. On a professional level, especially for Black professionals, our reality is always denied. whenever when questions are asked, they are more tend to be marginalized, minimized, and or someone else takes credit for your question and or your ideal. And everyone just kind of organize, oh no, oh, it's not about race. Oh, it's not because you're a female. It's not this, it's not that. They offer you some sort of justification. However, and at the same time, the flip side is of that, I notice from my work and my world, my life. I work in mental health, and I've always worked in the hood, in the community. Like I said, I'm a representative from the voices in the margin, so I stay close to the margins. And working with folks in DNA, drug and alcohol addiction, and or mental health challenges in the community mental health system, there's always this notion that when people talk about, they share their story of their addiction and what happened for them and what they went through, and I ask questions about their childhood and where they learned these things and different things. People, we are so quick to say to each other first and foremost, Black folks are so quick to say to each other, that's not an excuse. Well, that's not an excuse. Someone says, I've experienced this from childhood on, and this type of abuse and all the shit people have been experiencing from childhood. And when you share that, someone says, oh, quote unquote, that's not an excuse. And that right there, that phrase, so I'm gonna add that phrase to the box of my communication coaching business. That term, oh, that's not an excuse. I have to breathe. These are the tools to use to manage as we think about, remember, relive, and even relive those experiences. Because, to certain images, may be ingrained in your mind. One of those images, I could see that plane going into the building during 911 because they played it over and over and over for the next month and a half or so, right? The images kind of become ingrained, and memories, and often childhood and painful memories. And when those memories surface, the feelings that are connected surface, at least when you're healthy, when your mind, body, and spirit is healthy and working the way it's supposed to work, you will feel certain things to greater or lesser degree, right? So I know I have the tools to manage it, and it is just about breathing and managing the breath and calming the spirit as it reflects on that image of being gaslit. Whenever you have an experience, again, home, work, community, whereby you're interacting in a conversation with someone and you walk away thinking, is something wrong with me? Or maybe I should have, or I could have. Or was it me? Is it because I'm Black? That was, another thing. Is it because, like, what just happened? Like, and it may take a bit. For some of us, it takes longer. Some it come right up. And people will snap it, snap back. I wasn't a snapbacker because I saw people fighting too much growing up. I didn't want that shit. So I learned to just kind of, okay, let me just sit back and peep game. And now I know the game. And, for my family, it's like, yeah, it appears to me at this point, I believe recovery is possible. However, like any treatment for any ailment that a person identifies for themselves or someone points out to them, they have a choice whether to address it. And when folks are not open, ready, able, or willing to engage in the work to heal and to recover from this illness, this programming. I call it programming. It deprogram and reprogram. The message has always been in the music. That was Parliament Funkadelics. They told us back in the 70s. We have to learn deprogram and reprogram your mind, your way of thinking, the things you say, learning to listen to yourself. The more you are able to hear yourself, you will hear others a lot clearer as well. I can give you that. I can tell you that. And, you know, what else do I want to say about this gaslighting and how it, it's just how it spread across society. And since it has become clearer to me, since I've come to see it, now I see it. It's like, once you see something, you don't unsee it. Now I see it everywhere. Once you identify the red card, then you begin to see it everywhere. Now I'm much more aware of it, and I'm aware of how pervasive it is. This thing called gaslighting, and what I call the gaslight effect. And we'll be talking about more about the tools and the steps to take to avoid being gaslit. It's like, it's an interesting little dynamic because, me, my mind, I think of in analogies and literal. I see things literally and figuratively. That's the seer that I am. So I think in analogy. So the analogy, gaslight, it's like having a little lighter. And this is the gaslight. And this is the gaslight. And when you're dealing with people in communications, people, there's basic communication styles. And when people are passive aggressive, they say shit, but underneath, it's like a little low blow. It's like, what? Wait a minute, did they just? That's gaslight. They just did that. See, but with a gaslight, you can hold it anywhere, and the person never knows what the fuck just happened. They just know something hit them. Like, wait a minute, somebody just did that, and they could do that, and because they just hold the gaslight, and I guess the words come out the mouth, so we never expect that it's getting ready. That's going to happen, and or that we'll always be forced to question ourselves. And that's another tactic of this gaslight effect. People will, you ask a question, and then they question it with a question. Well, why are you asking that question? Well, don't you know, blah, blah, blah. If I knew those things, I would not ask the question. I want to have a conversation. I want to know what you know. So and understand your perspective and support you with understanding my perspective. However, that's not the way the world works, right? No, the world works in a way where it's always flipping the script and pushing it back in your face, such that the victim of a crime in the American system and possibly in others as well, the onus is on the victim to prove that the perpetrator did what they did. And the victim is the one who has been harmed, and they have to do the work first and independently to heal. And when you're talking about gaslight, and you're talking about mental and emotional illness and pain and damage, and no one can see it because it's internal. The only way we see it is based on what comes out. Now, when we say our truth for as best we can, and the response is to take our words and twist it up and cause us to think that there's something wrong with you. It's not this. It's not that. It's just this is you. Then people are left feeling like they tend to feel when they come to me, and that is they feel very dejected, unwanted, rejected, mistreated, and it's a result of the gaslight effect. And that's what many of us are living with walking around with, practicing, and seemingly very unaware of it. And that's sort of how it works. So just review a little quick, on the societal level, it's the largest form because it's the greatest platform that affects everybody, the whole societal, all above and underneath too. As above, so below. It's like, I said below, they spread this shit and it's like we are sandwiched in it, in this mess. On the bottom layer of the system is what? White supremacy. White supremacy. They're giving it to the fucking world, the notion that whites are supreme. And anyone who questions that or challenges that, they get the gaslight. It's systemic. It's how the media, politics, institutions, everybody manipulates the truth. And when you as an individual are speaking your truth to a family member, it's the same dynamic. When someone takes your words and works to manipulate it, to make it be what they think it is and what they want it to be. And we see this happening everywhere we go. Do you? Do you? I do. So you tell me, drop a comment if this resonates with you. And or if you are like me in a position where I'm ready to reclaim my voice. And, I have reclaimed my voice. Not ready to, I have. My next little challenge is sharing it. Sharing it for real with, my family if they come around, because I'm okay with keeping myself to myself and keeping myself safe. That's one of the ways to break free and express, reclaim my voice that was taken away, reclaim our voice that was taken away, reclaim our story that was taken away. Ultimately, it's about reclaiming my culture and working to get out from under this cultural enslavement that we all seem to be trapped in, and many people seem to be comfortably trapped in. However, if you're like me and you're not comfortable in this shit, then DM me and let's talk. Let's have some conversations. Join me in the recovery room of Racism Not Anonymous, which is a safe space for us to remember and tell the truth about the terrible shit that happened. Because those are both prerequisites to doing two things: restoring social order and healing individual victims.
All of us catch hell from the same enemy. We're all in the same bag, in the same boat. We suffer political oppression, economic exploitation, and social degradation. All of them from the same enemy. The government has failed us. You can't deny that. Anytime you're living in the 20th century, 1964, and you walking around here singing, "We shall overcome," the government has failed. And the white liberals, who have been posing as our friends, have failed us. And once we see that all these other sources to which we turn have failed, we stop turning to them and turn to ourselves. We need a self-help program.